So essentially all real estate in the District of Columbia is regulated through my agency. The district also vigorously protects tenants' rights in the event a landlord plans to demolish, discontinue, or discontinue housing use of residential rental property. In particular, the Rental Housing Conversion and Sale Act sets out notices and the time frames for delivery, and it's a little complicated. So I'm going to be giving you an overview of the most important features of the Act, legal requirements of the Act. The first thing is the offer of sale. Before an owner can sell to another property, demolish, or discontinue housing use, the owner has to provide each tenant with an offer of sale. And that offer of sale has to include a statement of the asking terms and price, a statement of the tenant's rights and sources of technical assistance, a statement whether an owner has the right to contract to sell the building to another person or group, for example, a third-party contract. A statement that the owner will make available a floor plan, and if there isn't one available, the owner has to provide a statement saying there isn't one. A list of operating expenses, utility consumption rates, expenditures for the past 2 years, and the most recent rent roll, list of tenants, and a list of vacant apartments. And that's to give the tenants an idea of the, the economic implications of buying into a building. The owner has to provide these items has to provide these items within 7 days of the tenant's request, and a copy of the offer of sale also has to be filed with my office as well. Once the tenants receive a notice of intent to sell, the Act describes steps in which the purchase process and the time periods in which each step has to be achieved. The purchase of rental buildings by tenants happens it's a three-stage process. First, tenants register their interest in purchasing, and they register with my office. They send notice to the landlord, and they also file with my office. Second, there's a negotiation period where parties go back and forth and negotiate the material terms of the contract. And then finally, after the contract is signed, there's a time period before settlement where tenants look for financing and arrangements are made for a settlement date. And the timing requirement of each stage of the process depends on the size of the building, whether it's a single-family dwelling or unit, whether it's 2 to 4 units or 5 or more. Then a third-party purchaser's rights to purchase that building is conditional upon the exercise of tenants' rights, whether they decide, you've decided to buy the building. So for a single-family dwelling, a tenant has 30 days to give the owner and my branch a statement of interest in purchasing. For a building with 2 to 4 units, a group of tenants acting together, if you come together, have 15 days to give the owner notice of their interest to purchase. But the tenants don't need to file a formal tenants organization. If the tenants acting together can't come up with an offer of sale, then an individual tenant has an additional 7 days to provide a statement of interest to the owner and the branch. But each statement has to be a very clear expression of an interest on the part of the individual tenant or tenant group to purchase. So for buildings with 5 or more units, larger buildings, tenants cannot purchase the building unless they formally organize into a tenants organization. A tenant association has to represent the majority of the households in the building. And if determining whether the association represents the majority, people who have worked for the owner in the last 120 days, for example, like a property agent or a property manager, or have lived in the building less than 90 days, are not counted towards that majority. If there's not a tenant organization, then the tenants have 45 days to organize and incorporate a tenants association. And the association has to deliver an application of registration to the owner and to my office. If there's already an existing tenants association, then a statement has to be delivered to the owner and my office within 30 days. The application of registration includes the names and contact information of the tenant's office, the tenant association officers, their attorney, if you have one, a copy of the filed articles of incorporation, filed copy of the bylaws, and documentation that the organization represents at least a majority of the occupied units at the time of registration. Then the second phase is the contract negotiation. And again, the periods depend on the size of the building. For a single-family dwelling, tenants will have 60 days. Actually, with the 30 days from the offer of sale, they'll have a total of 90 days. So it's they have 30 days from the written statement of interest plus the 60 days for negotiation. For 2 to 4 units, it's 90 days for the tenant group. If the group doesn't negotiate the contract during this time, the owner is to give the individual tenants an additional 30 days, so a total of 120. I'm going to check this. For 5 or more units, it's 120 days.